The Denver Nuggets go out with a whimper. But where do they go from here? Stay tuned and explore the unknown with us. Welcome to What's in a Game. I'm Grace Jean here with my co-host Will Jones. How are you doing today, Will, on Elimination Friday?
Man, it's hard to even know what to really say, but I'm getting used to it quicker than I thought I would. Last night was definitely upsetting though. Feel a little better today. But it's this weird territory we're in. Like the kinds of opinions you can form now that you've seen what happened and seen the playoffs. It's like it's strange to finally get there because you kind of have opinions. You're trying to withhold judgment because you're like, I need to see what they do in the playoffs. And here we are. So yeah, it's weird even listening to, the journalists and the people that we know and respect and have had on the show, like them firing away at what they think about the team. And it's like, it's just funny being in this situation.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to dive right into the thick of things here. So before we do that, please do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Really helps us out with the algorithm. All right. First segment here is just kind of an emotional decompression. Denver's been eliminated from the playoffs in round one, losing in 6 games to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Denver Nuggets will not play a playoff game in the month of May. Today's May 1st. Well, How does this playoff loss and like the feelings associated with it as a fan of the team compare to others? Because I have I have a very limited history with the team, but you have obviously been following them for much longer. So I'll share mine, but I think like having your sort of broader perspective would help like kind of lay like where we're at right now.
Yeah, it is immediately stands out because it's further away from the title and it is on a descent of the team struggling. And then the ramifications are that there's going to probably be a completely new identity. Whereas we've lost it in playoffs before we won the title, but it was kind of in a promising way. We're like, oh, we're almost there. We're building. We're getting better every year. And now it's just like we're getting worse every year. So the further away you get from that, the more damning it is. And so it's the most heartbreaking one. I mean, losing game 7 to the Wolves and losing the 20-point lead, you might think that would hurt worse because it's game 7, you blew this big lead and you had it. But like the way that we went out and the way that it was so sad and like you can't even there's like no silver lining you can even put on it.
Interesting. What was the silver lining in 24?
I mean, maybe the silver lining is pathetic and weak, but you're like, like the Wolves, that was a bad matchup. We need to just get some new pieces and figure that out. And we've already won a title and it's hard to repeat. And Jamal was hurt. So what can you do?
It's
Jamal had his injury.
Under those circumstances.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it was right to like think those things, but
no, I'm just curious like what that was, because I agree with you. There's like no silver lining with this one for sure. But in terms of like the playoff losses I've experienced before this one, like 24 was my first one. So that was pretty heartbreaking for me. Like I felt honestly pretty similarly. It's interesting because the last 3 like losses, like the elimination game, if you'd asked me in 24, I would have said I'm never going to feel this sort of numb again. But like the game 7 against OKC last year, I already didn't think they were going to win that. I was like, I don't even know how they got this far in this series. So I was kind of already resigned to it. And with this one, almost maybe like ironically, I think this one was the one that made me the most numb, despite the fact that contextually it's the most catastrophic, not just because it was round 1, not just because you were the higher seed, you were like the dramatic favorite in this series. Despite the injuries that you had better injury luck. Like, I don't think that it's arguable that Denver had better injury luck in this series than Minnesota did. And but also because it's like, okay, another year where it's like all of those things put together, and a year where it's like, no, like you were supposed to win this series, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Let me think about that. In all three of the ones I've experienced, the playoff series losses, Denver goes down early in the series. Oh no, I guess in OKC they were actually up. Again, ironically, because that was the one where they probably should have gotten like stomped like the quickest, right? But even with Denver up, like I just like wasn't buying it. Again, that was the one that went like one of the ones that went to a game 7. But yeah, with this one, like just focusing in on it, I think after game 4 just felt like a wake. Not a funeral, because in my culture, funerals are like fun.
Oh, okay.
Like they're like celebratory. But the wakes are very somber and sad, and you're just kind of like sitting there staring at the it's often open casket.
Yeah. Like I wasn't mad.
And just like coming to terms with like, this is just how it is. And I had not experienced a team like making it 3-1 comeback. And so I know that like other people had, and some of that, like some subset of those people thought that Denver could do it, especially under the circumstances of Minnesota's injury. But even after game 5, in the context of there's a reason they're down 3-1 in this series, I just didn't think that it was going to happen.
Yeah, it was interesting thinking about being down 3-1 again. And like, I mean, we kind of talked about it on last show and talked about like how I was messaging you after the game 2 loss, and I was saying some doomer stuff, as I would say, which was mostly like, I'm very concerned that there are too many problems for the Nuggets to solve. Like, and even though it was 1-1 and there was a chance we could go to Minnesota and steal some games, I was like, I don't see how the hell we're going to fix this, like even at that time. So like I was kind of out on the series after game 2. And then it ended up being the case. The only glimmer of hope was that the Wolves had injuries, and so we won game 5, and then I was like, maybe we can do it. Like I really did think there was the possibility. And then after we kind of went up early on the Wolves, and then they kind of came back on an 11-0 run and we were down, I was like, oh, this looks like we're going to lose. And yeah, we can get into specifics and all that later.
You're talking about game 6, right?
Yeah, in game 6.
Yeah. No. The thing with that game was it was weird, right? Because like I was like, okay, Denver kind of comes out. It's like 7-2 at one point or whatever, and then Minnesota comes back. They take the lead, and then they lead the rest of the way, right? But throughout the game, except for like a couple pockets, it was usually within 2 possessions. But it was weird watching that game. Maybe it was like 2.5 possessions, like 6 or 7 points. Like it was basically within like 5 to 7 points for most of that game, like the vast majority. And it was weird watching that game because it honestly felt like watching the Orlando Magic, not because like Denver was necessarily, but it was one of those things where it's like a 6-point lead feels absolutely insurmountable.
Yeah, it really
like
did,
throughout
especially
that game, right?
With how our offense looked.
And there was, I mean, they scored, they had 98 points with like 4 minutes left and didn't score the rest of the way. I think there was a graphic that flashed with in the last 90 seconds that showed that Denver had only scored 1 field goal in the previous like 7.5 minutes, and they didn't score one again. So they didn't score a field goal, like make a basket, for over 8 minutes, probably closer to 9, to close that game. Which was like, wow. Like it was, I was like, there were opportunities because they were getting stops throughout that, that last, in the fourth quarter. But I never felt like they were going to score, and they didn't.
Yeah.
It
It's
was
just
kind of
so bizarre.
surreal to watch, honestly.
It was. I mean, it was hard to separate out the fact that the Wolves are very good defensively and they do a lot of specific things that limit our best players uh, from the Nuggets just being inexplicably terrible and not showing up. Like, and the lack of shooting. Like, I saw the graph today that we shot 32% in the series, which would be last in the NBA by far. And the Wolves shot 45%, which would be best in the NBA by far. And it was just really weird to see that swing because you don't think of the Wolves as this high powered offensive team. You think of them as a defensive team. And yet the Wolves were able to be amazing defensively. And the fact that the Nuggets suck on defense, also amazing offensively. So it was weird. And like, it's part of what I kind of want to like even sift through today with you is like, how much are you, putting on the players for not showing up versus like this matchup is the worst one for Jamal, for example. And like all the Wolves needed was Rudy and Jaden McDaniels out there. It turns out didn't matter who else was
Yep.
out there. And it
Literally
was
didn't matter who
basically
else was out there.
it was 2-on-2, and the other Nuggets were basically not doing anything. Like Christian had his worst game I think I've maybe ever seen. Bruce Brown had by far the worst game I've ever seen, and Jamal had his worst game. So it was like that's when Jamal and Jokic are getting limited by these dudes. I mean, Cam did step up, and that's great, but we didn't. We just needed some other people to do it. So it was pretty
Yeah,
shocking
Cam
seeing
was
the
great in the
roster.
first half, and then he came crashing back down to earth, which is like
Yeah.
not necessarily his fault. I was kind of surprised at what he was doing in the first half, even against like the defense that the Timberwolves were playing on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's funny how like this is the last impression we have of the players, like Cam and Jamal,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, how much is that going to carry over into decisions? Because it's like, do you really want to just say? Because before Cam was like an easy piece to trade, like, oh, they lost. He's a $20 million contract. Some team will probably want him. You can trade him. But then he played well in this last game, and everyone's now thinking, oh, Cam looked pretty good, and now Jamal looks like he's the problem. And it's like, do you really want one game to help you make these big decisions, or do you just look at it as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the series as a whole, you look at the season as a whole as well, right? We're gonna get to that when we go to the where do they go from here, but let's first kind of dive into some of these more specific questions in the instant playoff review here. And we'll probably do a deeper autopsy in the weeks coming and, with the off-season shows. But I want to start by reviewing some of the questions that we asked going into the playoffs that were like, what are the most important questions? And like we did a show a couple weeks back that asked, we had a couple questions for each player and we're like, which of these things is going to be more important? But I think like in light of this level of like failure, we'll just like answer all the questions that we had for the main guys anywhere. Before we get to the players, the first ones that the questions that we asked going into the playoffs had to do with seeding and general questions about the team, right? First one we asked, do we even want the 3 seed? In retrospect, no, because they can't beat the Wolves. They can't beat the Wolves in a playoff series. I want to address this fact actually. And if there are any, I don't know if there are any Wolves fans that ever watch our show. It has been 3 straight years of me picking against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the first round against a team that they lost the season series to, like in the regular season, and then them winning that first round series anyway.
Yeah.
So like there's something about the Timberwolves, and it's not just against Denver, because it was this Phoenix Suns in 24. They like got curb stomped in the regular season series, right? But they made like some adjustments in the playoffs both schematically and the players just kind of played better and like played up to their potential. And handled the Suns like in 4 games, right? The Lakers. I think the Lakers won 1 game in that series, but the Wolves won in 5. It was like this Lakers team is totally fraudulent, and that was the one I think I'll take the L on that because I had very poor process in even trying to assess like that matchup and like the quality of those teams. The Suns one was like there was literally no evidence to suggest that the Wolves should have swept the Suns. It's like seemed like a tough matchup for them in the regular season. Even if they were going to win the series, it felt like it should have gone longer than it did, but it didn't, and that's a credit to them. This one, obviously, it's a little different. The matchup favors Minnesota a little bit more, but they're like super injured, and they did lose the season series to Denver, and Denver is a different team than they were a couple years ago. And like primarily like Jamal's healthy this time. Apparently that, didn't end up mattering. But it's interesting to me how, zooming out from the Denver specific context and just looking at just the Timberwolves, this is a team that at least when it comes to like their first round opponents, regardless of who it is, they overperform the expectation based on like how they played against that team in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of overcome what could be seen as matchup like disadvantages, like in the case of like the Suns series. And yeah, like curb stomp the Lakers as they really should have. Like I should have picked Minnesota in that series. And then obviously handled Denver by overwhelming them with athleticism just on both ends of the floor.
Yeah. Man, I mean,
and like, what do you think that is about that team? Like they have at least in the first round, like they have an ability to punch above their weight in the playoffs relative to the regular season.
Well, I think the defensive identity helps. I think we're kind of seeing that in this trend in this playoffs where if you have the personnel to lock down scorers, then you really can improve your chances against anybody because then you're getting stops. The other team can't set, like we saw that all the time, can't rebound. The transition was killing us. We can't set our defense, so we're already at a massive disadvantage. And the more athletic you are with wings and guys who can actually create and get into guys, the more physical you can be, the more success you're going to have. And that was just a glaring like weakness for the Nuggets. And I think that's the Timberwolves' strength is they have that same kind of, I mean, they're not exactly the same as OKC or the Spurs. Well, maybe the Spurs aren't even like that because they have Wemby, but like the Celtics where it's like, and they're struggling too. But in the past, when they won the title, just wings who are athletic, who can dribble and shoot and create and get to the rim and get downhill and dribble a little bit. And we just have a lack of that. Like everybody just looked weak on the Nuggets. They looked unskilled. They looked scared. And so it was just really exposed. And I don't know why the Wolves kind of seemingly underperformed in the regular season and then looked great in the playoffs. I really don't know what the deal is, but I assume is something to do with being able to defend consistently.
Yeah, and it's funny because like if you just do that in the regular season, you can win a shit ton of games. But they were very inconsistent in the regular season at doing that for whatever reason. This year and last year, at least relative to what they did in 24. I will say when you look at the Timberwolves, the teams that they haven't been able to kind of push around in the playoffs the last 2 years, and we'll see what happens moving forward. Where the Dallas Mavericks, after going through like a pretty grueling 7-game series against Denver, to be fair, like it's very possible that if it was like, if they'd handled Denver in 5, like hadn't let Denver get both games in Minnesota, after taking a 2-0 lead in that series. Maybe they would have done better against the Mavericks, but they didn't. They got pretty handled. And I think that the rim protection is a really big factor in that. I've talked about that before. And the Oklahoma City Thunder last year were like, no, you can't out athlete us. Like, you have to play like basketball and like basketball terms. But when you look at every other team that they've beaten, it was the Suns, it was Denver, it was the Lakers, it was the Warriors, sans Steph, by the way. And I thought the Warriors actually put up like a decent fight given the circumstance. I think they went out in 5, but like they fought hard in those games. And the Warriors are not what I would call an athletic team, but they have, maybe it's just the way that they play. Like, they're pretty like pesky on the perimeter kind of thing. So like you can hand that to them. But they're not an athletic team. Otherwise, like when they have played athletic teams, they've really struggled. And then it becomes about like your process and like the if you can have a team that like meets their athleticism and just plays with less CT. So I'm gonna be honest, like I don't think that I think game 6 was like the most impressive game by the Timberwolves, maybe even just offensively. Especially given like the circumstances with the injuries. I don't think they played that well offensively in this series. Like, I think they were very sloppy throughout and gave Denver lots and lots of chances. And like Denver was just not able to capitalize because Minnesota was able to like stiff arm them in certain ways, and Denver just couldn't overcome that. And that's obviously on them. But I think that Minnesota is just an interesting, I don't want to spend too much time on them, and I think I've already like done that, but it's just an interesting case study on a team that is clearly like built for the playoffs to an extent, where it's like, we are here to, they're probably the best team at exposing other teams that are not athletic enough to make it deep into the playoffs.
That's true too. They are kind of like a litmus test.
Yes,
but it often goes through Denver first, and then we kind of mess them up in a way, and then they're not ready to compete. Like, they lose to the Mavs after they play us, and they're probably going to lose to the Spurs too because they're injured, of course. But yeah, the Wolves, the storyline that surrounds the Wolves, like Bones being there and Tim Connelly, and the fact that we could have drafted Terrence Shannon Jr. and we had NBA Chicken on this show talking about how he liked Terrence Shannon Jr. more than Deron Holmes, even though everyone was keyed on Deron Holmes. And we picked Deron Holmes, and he didn't even play in this series. I like
Terrence Shannon Jr. too. I was like, I could see either of these being good for Denver.
But it was like shocking how he looked like he could be like the third best player on our team, and he barely has ever played in the playoffs.
I mean, in game 6, he could have been the second best player on our team.
Yeah, true.
And part of that, to be fair, is like a lot of guys look like they could be like a first or second option when they play Denver because of the defensive issues. Maybe they don't look that way when they play somebody else. And I'm very curious to see what they look like going against a team like San Antonio, for example. But I agree. Like you got the Tim Connelly thing, you've got the Bones. I mean, Bones was like really not a factor in this game, can be, which was like I thought he might be, but just because of like who they had available. But Minnesota really like holds up a like funhouse mirror to Denver when they play. It's kind of, funhouse mirror is not right. It's really like the only thing they were missing is like Michael Malone as coach. It's like, here, do you have any regrets over the last few years? Is that I have a thing. I do have something to say about Tim Connelly in particular, though, based on everything that I've heard and like literally watching this team and like watching like what they were before I became a fan and everything like that. Tim Connelly literally left Denver and then started packing other teams with athletes after like not doing that in Denver for several years. He was here. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay, sure, man. Like,
I
sure.
don't get it. I don't get why
Like
he all of a sudden saw the
he
light.
passed on Jaden McDaniels to draft Zeke Najee.
God, dude.
Like that happened. So it's kind of like, no, I'm not gonna. No, you don't in fact have to hand it to them kind of situation there.
Yeah. But like that's what you're also hinting at is just I mean, I was thinking about all the moves we made since the title, and it's just bad all the way around. Like there's just barely anything good that we ever did after we won the title. Like every decision we had on a player or like a draftee, or I mean, there's of course exceptions, but man,
They're
it's just
kind of
been
neutral
brutal.
at best. It's a lot of like,
Yeah, yeah. Like some of them are still in the process of like maybe being good. Like even
yeah.
like okay, we dumped Hunter Tyson so that we could convert Spencer, and he played in the playoffs. So yeah, it's but there's some
Spent a
downsides to that.
2032 second round pick to salary
Yeah,
dump Hunter Tyson. No, not so that you could convert Spencer. It was to get under the
get under the
luxury
tax.
tax to be
Yeah.
able to convert Spencer and stay under the tax, which
Mm-hmm.
is like, okay, whatever. Um,
So this is like the organizational failure, really, is like, and all this stuff is related, and I want like that's what's so hard to think about all this is it is a little chicken and the egg. Like, yeah, we can point out specific reasons we lost this series, but so much of this is related, and I'm not discriminating or like choosing was it the coach or was it the players or was it the front office or was it the owners? Like I think it's all of it, of course. So like these things aren't mutually exclusive, and we can talk about what things we blame the most, but everything is very related. So also, I wanted to look. I pulled up the draft that we had about like if we went out in the first round, and I wanted to look back at those reasons because oh, your camera's gone. Where'd you go?
I don't know.
I'll find Grace's camera, but these were our reasons, and pretty much every single one came true. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was a bad first round matchup. It wasn't OKC or Spurs, but the Wolves, and Aaron Gordon injury, our defense. Jamal didn't get injured, but we did have really bad Jokic and Jamal. Our role players didn't show up. Coaching was an issue. And I do think our depth was exposed. I mean, you just saw the Wolves C. Well, I mean, not their C team, but I mean, a very shorthanded Wolves.
I mean, Terrence Jr. was
Eliminate us.
not in the rotation at the beginning of this series. And then he came in and was at 24 points in an elimination game.
Yeah. So
largely off of just like, I'm more athletic than everybody that Denver's got on the floor.
Yep. And I was just at one point thinking, okay, we have Jokic out there with Tim Hardaway, Bruce Brown, or I don't know if Bruce was out there, but Tyus Jones and Spencer Jones. And it reminded me of those times when we would look back at like the playoff lineups we had where it was like Jokic with Facu and Austin Rivers. And we were like, wow, I can't believe we played in a playoff series with these players with Jokic. And I like Spencer Jones and all that, and he has potential, but he's also a two-way converted guy, and he was making tons of mistakes. And granted, he played big in game 5, so props to him. But like he still was making like mistakes all the time and can't screen any fouls and whatever. Like he's not a seasoned player right now. He's a lot to learn. And I know it's unfair to put that expectation on him because he's filling in for AG who's out, and that's a lot of pressure, and I get that. But like that is not a lineup. I mean,
the question is like,
series.
Why is a two-way converted player filling in for AG?
Yeah.
Right.
And it was just like, well, it was just kind of shocking when I was looking at who we had on the floor and who the Wolves had on the floor, and how like I don't care that Ant and Dante were out. It was like they were completely outmatched anyway.
Hoopsmatic, I actually disagree. I think that the series was, I thought the series was over after game 4, but I think like just generally, and Ant, I think, went out in that game or game 3. I can't remember. When Ant went out, I was like, oh man, our chances of winning the series just went down because despite his flashes, like Ant was hobbling out there. And every minute that he's on the floor is another minute that a like fresh legs, like healthy body for Minnesota was not on the floor. So I actually disagree. I think Denver, I don't know, might have been, especially because like they were going at Ant and that was like an easier, for some reason, like they were more willing to give up that matchup to Jamal early in the series, but like couldn't shake Jade in the rest of the series for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Our experience is they still think the Nuggets are better than the Wolves. Still, we just didn't have AG. Well, we lost games with AG too.
I still think we would have won that game last night in that context against that lineup if we had healthy AG, which
sure,
is hypothetical, but yeah.
Which is like when is the last time we've actually had healthy AG? If we think about it,
I know.
Yeah. Okay, so that's enough about the Wolves for now. I'm sure we're going to hear more about them. Congratulations to the Minnesota Timberwolves on advancing to round 2. I'm curious to see how you do against the Spurs. I will be rooting against you because the origin of my Nuggets fandom is rooting against the Timberwolves. So that's just how it goes.
I've been trying to think of who I want to like root for the rest of the way.
But I was thinking about this, and like for the Wolves, it felt like their 2021, the 2021, yeah, like Blazers series, except they're the Nuggets in that situation where they were super injured and then like left a Blazers team that, I mean, it's different because I think the Nuggets were the higher seed in that situation, but like they shouldn't have won that series because of the injuries that they had.
It's the same thing.
And left the team that lost like freaking devastated. And we saw what happened with the Blazers after that. Right? Mm-hmm. You don't come out of a series with this result in this context and not make significant changes. All right, let's talk more instant playoff review. Jokic. The questions were, can he limit his turnovers? I just looked at the numbers. I mean, he had 5 turnovers in game 1. But it was like 3 or 4 every other game. And it was like, whatever, like, it wasn't like crazy off the charts. It wasn't amazing, and he still had some dumb ones here and there, but it wasn't crazy, especially in the context of just the way that defenses have been forcing turnovers in these playoffs like crazy. So it could have been worse. But the other question was, will he be able to balance defense and offense in the same game across series? And I used series plural here, but it wasn't able to do that across one series, right? I think we have to talk about Jokic. He was pretty bad offensively throughout most of this series. Found his stride across like sections of like game. He had like a good section in game 1. He had like early. He had a good section, or he had a good game 5. And I thought he was really good in the second half of game 6. But the question was about balancing offense and defense. And I thought that as soon as he started having to take on, frankly, the scoring burden, but also like finally started making shots efficiently in the second half of that game, the defense fell off a cliff. Mm-hmm. With like his defense in particular did. And even though the Timberwolves only scored 108 points in the context of, again, the Wolves lead the playoffs with points in the paint. Is that like per game or total?
Yeah. Like we know Jokic's struggles to protect the rim and be a presence in the paint, but it was like no effort.
Yeah, per game. They're averaging 57 points in the paint per game, which is kind of crazy. Like I think Denver was near 60 points in the paint per game, and they were like leading the league in that. Was either last year or the year before, and it was almost 60 in the regular season. So like 57 points in the paint per game in the playoffs is insane. Like that's just unacceptable. And Denver was down to 11th, 43, which is like really low. Like you really want to be like pushing 50, especially if you're Denver. But Minnesota turned us into a jump shooting team in this series, and nobody could make their jump shots. And we did not turn them into a jump shooting team. I'm actually curious if I went back to the 24 series. I didn't feel like I feel like Minnesota wasn't like that good of a paint team. So conference semifinals.
They might have been versus us just because it was us.
Yeah, I'm just going to look at that series. 44.9 points in the paint that series per game, which is way less than 57.
Yeah.
They were kind of killing us.
Had AG.
Had AG. We had KCP like getting cooked by Ant on like jump shots.
Yeah,
right?
he was good.
And it was like, but you know, everyone was like, well, we don't need him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Jokic
or like forget it. Forget if you like, well, we can't pay KCP that and like keep everybody else together. Fine, whatever. Never replaced that function. Never even tried to replace that function.
Yeah.
Of like a dude that can stay in front of other dudes like consistently. Yeah, that's really, man, 57 points in the paint. That's crazy. Really bad. So the answer was no. Like Jokic was not good enough in this series. I think this is one of the worst playoff series that I've seen from him. I think this is worse than the 24 series. Because at least in that one, I mean, he started to catch on by game 3, like the second half of game 4 of the 2024 series against the Wolves. You know, KC, like something I talked about at the beginning of this series is like, it's been a while since I've seen Jokic start a playoff series well. And the exception to that in the last few years was the OKC series, but it was really just game 1. And then it was straight stinkers until game 5. And I don't know what's going on with that. I know, I don't know what his normal kind of going into the playoffs, like routine, like trading regiment or whatever is, but Bennett Durando, friend of the pod, over on his podcast, Nuggets Inc., which is produced by the Denver Post, where Bennett is a Nuggets beat writer for them. He was talking about how he was hearing kind of internally from the team that like cutting weight was a really big priority for Jokic in the weeks leading up to the playoffs. And that was like visibly pretty evident. Like Jokic has lost a lot of weight very quickly this year in particular, in a way that was not, like definitely not true in 24, because like, he went into that Lakers series. I was like, whoa. But if you compare like where Jokic was even a few months ago to where he is in the playoffs, like he's definitely lost a lot of weight. And I just kind of wonder if part of that process this year like left him, I don't know, fatigued or like off balance, because when you lose weight that quickly, like everything's kind of a little bit off. And maybe part of the timeline issue with that is like the injury that he had and when he had it left him in a state where it's like, I can't start like cutting right now because I'm trying to get back into condition. And then he starts cutting late, and then it's just like, because Jokic had different problems in the playoffs than he did even as I was kind of like, he's not looking good post injury. Like this was like different. And I was curious to hear that from Bennett, because I think explained more of what was going on with him than I thought, where I was just like, I don't know why offensively, and like in particular when I say offensively, I mean scoring, which I know is not everything that Jokic does, but the scoring in particular, nowhere near the efficiency that you'd need was definitely seemed easier for Rudy to push him around, especially early in this series. I actually thought he was pretty good in the latter half of Game 6, like I said, and obviously in Game 5. But it all kind of starts there, and we're gonna get to Jamal. We are, but it was really unfortunate, especially early in this series, that Jokic kind of couldn't get it together when you weren't getting like massive contributions from other guys, but you were getting like kind of enough to where if you were getting like the average expected Jokic game, uh, like not even above average, just average, would have been enough to win some games earlier in the
Yeah.
series.
Because what put us down early in the series was this
Jokic.
matchup. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the weight thing is a serious question.
Sorry, go ahead.
The weight idea, like in him losing weight against Rudy, is a legit question and could be a reason why he was struggling to rebound and to like get position and to like force his will. And now we're at the point where, so like, I mean, we're going to talk about other players, and I get people blaming Jokic, and he is the reason why we dug ourselves a hole. But I also think there are other issues that play into it and why Jokic struggled. But it has a little bit different because usually Jokic ends up winning a matchup and then there's like an adjustment. And then we're starting to talk about how we don't have enough to solve that problem.
We didn't get there.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that.
We talked so much going into this series about like Finch is going to eventually have to take Rudy off of Jokic. He never had to do that. And there are a couple layers to that. I still think that having Rudy on Jokic left a lot on the bone for other players that we didn't really take advantage of process-wise. A little bit in game 1, just didn't really in games 2 through 4, but until games 5 and 6 again, where we're like really spamming the off-ball stuff. And like Cam was feasting on that even in game 6. I actually thought we were running a lot of great stuff for Jamal, and he was the one that dropped the ball there. So like process-wise, eventually we got there in this series. But I don't know why we didn't do that earlier to exploit that stuff. But on top, the other layer there is like, Jokic needs to break that matchup, and he never did. Like they never felt uncomfortable enough to move Rudy off of Jokic. Not that I wanted that. Like I didn't want that. I wanted them to leave Rudy on Jokic so that we could take advantage of all the off-ball stuff, and we just weren't able to enough.
Yeah.
And early enough in the series.
It was really strange how we didn't even get past that first hurdle.
Yeah.
It was sad. Jokic had a bad series, worst series, and I can't believe I have to live with the Jokic era was great, but he got eliminated by the Wolves all the time. Like I can't believe that's now has to be part of the story, unless we'll see how it goes moving forward. But granted, I love Jokic. I just want to make it clear we're not trading him. Trading him would be so stupid. I don't even want to talk about that. And there were reports that came out from Sam Amick who said that the front office is confident that he'll resign. It's like, okay. I mean,
Jokic said in his presser, I want to be like, did he say Nugget forever? Nugget for a long time. I want
to be Nugget forever.
There's some out there who have been wish casting Jokic asking out, and this is not a Giannis situation. It's very unambiguous. Like he doesn't even, maybe to some people's chagrin, they're like they want him to like apply pressure or whatever. He's not going to do that.
Yeah.
And not just not do that, like unambiguously be like, no, I want to be here. So that's just where that is right now. But I mean, we're going to get to the offseason conversations and all of that, but this is a really big ding, I think Jokic is standing in the league, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, no, he's not going to be best player in the world anymore. That title's gone. Or
it's at least like a
that
question.
He doesn't win the MVP. Yeah. So like I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt at least once and be like, oh wow, you had a really bad playoffs against our worst
Nuggets
matchup.
Fan is willing to give Jokic the benefit.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just like
There's a lot that
I
are
don't know how
not
much
right now.
credibility you have on the issue to like in terms of
I
like outside people. I think
well,
that we're
yeah.
all willing to give Jokic the benefit of the doubt for the most part, but like this was bad and like
Yeah. If he does
it,
it again next playoffs, then I'd be like, what the hell is going on with this dude? Like, but
I mean, I'm already like, what the hell is going on with this dude? But that's me
yeah.
giving the benefit of the doubt.
I'm curious what is going on for sure. Like I'm thinking about that, but I'm not making any like referendums on Jokic like because of it
Yeah, yeah,
yet.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Steph Curry is never going to get questioned by the Golden State Warriors fan base, and
Yeah.
he's had really bad playoff series, right? In like losses, and like he like keeps getting injured, and like he's old, and like all this stuff, and so I would not expect anyone to be like, this is not a situation where it's like, I don't know if he can be like the best player on a
Yeah.
championship team.
But I
And even
do
if he couldn't, it's like, do we even have the opportunity to like, what's the alternative
yeah.
kind of thing? Um,
Bro, you need an
this
MVP
isn't
level player
like
on your team to win a
this
title.
isn't
So
like the
you want to
Lakers
trade that
debating
guy?
like whether to trade LeBron, for example, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
All right, let's get into the rest of it because that's what
All
I'm
right,
more
let's
interested
get to
in.
Jamal. Like, this was bad. This was atrocious. This was, I mean, legacy defining, I think. Jamal had a really bad series. I know people really liked his approach in game 1. I didn't like the process, but I think that was a combination of like DA and everybody. Uh Very inefficient series. Couldn't get separation from, even in game 6, I actually thought the process was right, but Jamal like couldn't make a layup, couldn't make a jump shot from anywhere. And the questions for him going into the playoffs were, will he maintain volume shooting from 3, and can he not be a bottom 5th percentile defender? And maybe he wasn't bottom 5th percentile, but he was a really bad defender in this series, and in particular in like big spots. He got cooked in isolation multiple times by Terrence Shannon Jr. to close the series out, and couldn't make a shot, like disappeared. And not just couldn't make a shot, I thought throughout game 6, and there were other parts in the series as well, Jamal was straight up just passing up shots. There was that one play where he gets the ball in the corner, and I can't remember if it's even Jaden, but I felt like Jaden was honestly in his head. Uh, Kind of, I think it might have been Jaden, but it might have been Nas. Like, flies by to close out, and I'm like, okay, is he gonna like sidestep here? But he pump fakes, drives, kind of like takes a dribble or two in, and instead of going for like an open midi or open floater there, he passes the ball off to, I think, Christian, who ends up like passing out to either Jokic or Cam for a 3 that misses. And like, this is all in transition. And it was like, man, this is not. And that a variant of that exact sequence happened 5 or 6 times in that game, where it's like, no, Jamal, you can't react like Christian Braun does when you get the ball.
Yeah, I know.
That's what it was. Like, that's what was happening in that game. And I think that game in particular, but this series more broadly, is a big hit, and maybe just like completely eliminates the myth of like playoff riser Jamal. Because this
So yeah.
wasn't even like, oh, even like it was only like 18 to 20 points per game, but he was like an efficient passer and like set other guys up and like was aggressive when he needed to and like bait shots when he needed to. No, like, that's just not what this series was. And I don't even know like what his final score was, but there was a point he started getting free throws in like the 4th quarter, and he had 8 points, and I was like, oh, when did he get 8 points? I was like, I don't remember him scoring before this moment. And that's just unacceptable from your second option in an elimination game. Just straight up. Like, Jamal's going to get a ton of slander for this, and I will have really there's no defense for it, because if this was any other player, like if this was Devin Booker, I'd be posting memes about like this level, like this kind of game in this spot, right? And like with other players, it's just missing shots. With Jamal, it was just like he's literally passing things up and like turning the offense worse as a result.
Yeah. Man, it's a complicated one for me. Like, ultimately, yes, there's no excuse, and it was horrible. And it's like, I didn't think there was, like, I knew there was a chance they could consider trading Jamal if we lost this series, just because you're talking about who has value and who can you trade. And I don't think, like, let's say you did want to trade Jamal, I don't think that game would deter a team from taking him. But at the same time, I almost didn't think there was anything he could do in game 6, or like at least in game 5 and 6, that would make me personally be open to trading Jamal. I was on the side of, I just don't think we should trade Jamal. I think Jamal and Jokic should be here. I even was on like AG, Jamal and Jokic should be here, and let's add other guys around. I knew it would be really hard to do that. But now I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if Jamal would be traded just from one game. Is like, which is just wild that we're here. And I do realize that Jaden McDaniels is Jamal's worst nightmare and all that, and that Jokic being covered up by Rudy makes it harder on Jamal too, and the other guys not being good makes it harder on Jamal. And I was getting pissed in game 6 that Jaden was literally grabbing Jamal's jersey every time he was trying to run around the perimeter. Like, I could see his jersey stretching like cheese.
Yeah, that's like what Jaden does all the time. So,
and they just like were letting it happen. And I'm like, yeah, of course Jamal's not getting separation. He's literally grabbing him the whole time. And Jamal was trying to fight through. It wasn't like he was turning to the ref and complaining. He was trying to just run through, but couldn't get any separation, couldn't get any looks. But also, he wasn't scoring on like Mike Connelly in the post. Like, he tried and just smoked the layup. And it's just like, we can't even attack Mike Conley. And it was just, and just open shots, open threes, he just missed. And the way that his shooting just disappeared the whole series, and we were not even the 3-point volume, like the volume.
He had one good game, and we lost that one. That was game 2, where he went 6 of 14.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So that was high volume. He had two 3-point
attempts. But that was basically the only game. I'm just gonna run over to his game log here to see, but it was kind of shocking how easy it was to just kind of get him back into not taking threes. Like,
it was crazy. It was so important
after that game. Threes. He took 5, 7, 6, and 2 threes. He took 2 threes in game 6.
Yeah, I know.
He was a minus 18 in that game, by the way.
It was like, I mean, I don't know if you asked the 2 questions we had specifically, but it was...
The other one was go ahead. You can
bring Can he not be a bottom 5th percentile defender? And he was horrible last night. Like, it was atrocious. It was like, I mean, I get Jaden McDaniels is 6'9" and can shoot over him, but it just really did expose how, like, archaic our defensive setup can be with Jokic and Murray. It just is not like modern.
I think the reason, by the way, you talked about like, oh, it's kind of weird, like me kind of feeling this way kind of based off of one game, like in terms of the like possibility of trading Jamal, or even the probability of it at this point. And it's because Jamal's value to the team is not quite the right phrase, but the sort of the value proposition of Jamal Murray is not built on any kind of consistency. It's built on these like high highs, like you'll take the lows because you get the high highs. Didn't really get that. Now if you're like, this was the season, right, where he has like this relatively steady regular season. I do think that it was quite bumpy post All-Star. On both ends of the floor, after kind of being bumpy on one end of the floor for a time where he was kind of filling in as like the guy trying to keep the team afloat while Jokic was out. So he has this year the more kind of holistic kind of case behind him. But if you're looking at just kind of multiple years and that inconsistency, and in particular the last few playoff runs, it's not been good, and he was injured for one of them. It really erodes the sort of main value proposition of Jamal Murray, which is like, he's going to be that killer for you in the playoffs. And that's just not like a given, or even like maybe isn't even reasonable to expect anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because of just what he's given you the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And now the question becomes like, does anybody think he's going to have another regular season even close to this again? I don't know, especially because like the shooting was a big part of it, and that completely fell off a cliff. You know, in the playoffs. In a playoffs weird. Where like everybody's shooting is falling off a cliff, except for like 2 teams, by the way, but like ours fell the furthest.
Yeah, it is hard to explain. It's hard to even process, because it's just ironic that, you know, we always have the Jamal doesn't care in the regular season, then he goes off in the playoffs, and now we're at his best season ever, and you would think you could count on that going into the playoffs, and it was just not there.
Or at least like, maybe this won't be this good in the playoffs, but again, fell off a cliff.
I was literally even at the point of when we were thinking about the matchup and thinking about how Jamal could get space and asking these questions, because we knew it was going to be hard. I thought he might just be in such good form that he could just get to a step back off the dribble on Jaden and do, you know, like a step back midi from the elbow, and he could make him, because that's how good he looked. But that, like, thinking of him doing that and now having seen the series is like insane to think about, because he wasn't anywhere near athletically you know, just even able to do that. So I don't even know what to think about the, like, and I know it's maybe a double standard that I'm like, I'm giving Jokic the benefit of the doubt for a bad series, but now I want to like not do that for Murray, and I won't be surprised if the Nuggets trade him.
Well, the thing is, it's not.
I'm sorry.
It's because he doesn't have the same cushion that obviously Jokic has. Like Jokic is like the best body of work of any player in the league, frankly. Like even if you don't think he's the best player in the league anymore, he has the best body of work of any player in the league, if you were going to give anybody the benefit of the doubt, even with a few bad playoff series recently, right? Jamal does not have that. So it's perfectly reasonable to not want to give him that same benefit. And I do think it's going to be a real question. Like you put the question at the bottom of the screen, will the Nuggets trade Jamal Murray? I mean, they traded MPJ after a similarly bad run relative to the expectation for his role.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think Jokic is a big question in this. Will he veto a Jamal even an Aaron Gordon trade? Like, would that be something he'd be like, I'm not signing if you're doing that? I don't know.
I think if Jokic could pick one, he'd pick AG.
Yeah, me too. Which sounds kind of crazy because, you know, AG is the injuries seems like a much clearer reason to trade him.
He's been with Jamal longer and like all this stuff, but it's like,
but it is like, I don't know. Jamal kind of can fall apart even when he's healthy, which is something we kind of hadn't seen. And maybe the injuries kind of kept masking the performances that he had when he wasn't rising to the occasion. And AG, I feel like whenever he is available, he's just good. He doesn't drop off. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But even when he was on one
I
leg,
think the athleticism has definitely dropped off, and like the shooting was like non-existent this year
for AG
after the hamstring injury. Yeah.
Yeah. After the injury, yeah. But even
But it's like,
when
yeah. I mean, I don't think the shooting dropped off because of the injury. I think it just timeline wise, he just couldn't shoot from three after at any point after the first hamstring injury this year. Which I mean, that was like 2 weeks into the season, so it's like, okay, what was the sample size that it was going to continue?
yeah,
Pretty
I
non-existent.
don't know. I don't know who they're gonna pick to trade, but I think might be harder to trade AG than Murray. So maybe that
Yeah.
is the answer.
Yeah, and we talked about that. I think it was last show, right? Because we were like, oh, we'll talk about things if they're down in the series, and lo and behold, they were down in the series. So we kind of, talked about the likelihood of all these different moves, and since we're on it with AG, the question was, can you stay healthy? And the answer was definitively no. Um, it was not the hamstring; it was the calf this time. Um, just these continuous lower body injuries to the point where AG does not play in an elimination game. And that's how you know it's bad, because AG was trying to play in game 7 on a grade 2 hamstring strain last year. So the fact that he sat this one out, I think, is pretty indicative of like where his body was at.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it is annoying. I mean, the big question was, will we be healthy? And we're all hoping maybe there's a way that he can recover, but it just never happened. And he played, I don't know, what, 2-3 games in this playoffs? And we only won 2 games. And yeah, without him, we literally could not function. Did you see, I don't know, what's his name? Kevin Wilds or whatever. Is that even his first name?
Yeah.
Wilds.
Yeah.
Did you see him tweet about Aaron Gordon last night?
No, what
Where
did he say?
he said Aaron Gordon isn't the MVP, but he might actually be the most valuable player, which I love, because I really do think AG being out does like completely just make the Nuggets so much more limited and weaker than it's almost hard to quantify, because it's just one player who wasn't
hard to
even playing that
quantify
well.
is right, but it's
Yeah.
it's high. It's like saying someone is priceless.
Especially because he's the only one who's athletic and can match kind of what the Wolves
and that's
offer.
the problem, right? It's
Yeah.
like, it's not him, it's like what's behind him. And it's also him. Like AG is like, when he's healthy, is like massively impactful, but it's also like what's behind him being less than stellar.
There's just
for sure. And like part of that is like, we haven't had Peyton Watson in like over 2 months at this point, basically, right? And he played like 2 or 3 games before he re-injured the hamstring. So if you don't count that, he played like a week after the All-Star break before he got injured originally. Yeah, it's just it's a tough situation with
you
the
think
forward room.
AG has more in him to give, or do you really worry about his body never being healthy again?
I don't know. I don't have enough information to say that. Like, the answer could easily be yes. The answer could also be no. NBAJ says at full health, AG is the number 2 guy in DNVR in Denver because he can and will defend hard. Yeah, he hasn't been at full health in a while, though.
Yeah, so like this whole season, he was
that's
pretty
the
much
question.
Not healthy.
And last season, like he actually played. He played fewer games this season than last, for sure. It was like 36 games, and then last year it was like 51 games, I think. But he was in and out all of last season too, and then he hurts his hamstring in the playoffs as well. Yeah, so it hasn't been a banner year for Mr. Nugget. Banner couple of years now.
Well, it was an amazing playoffs for him last season, despite that fact that
he was that one injury. Yeah,
he wouldn't have made it past the next round. Like, when we lost to OKC, he said he wouldn't be able to even play. But like, he won.
We were a game away from having to be eliminated by the Wolves for 3 years in a row, basically, because we would have played the Wolves in the conference finals, right?
And people can think I'm crazy or whatever. You can have your opinions about AG, but I still think there's something serious with the training staff. And I'm like, am maybe coping, but I'm hoping if we get trainers who have more up-to-date methods, they can get AG back to playing at least more than he is now. Of course, like that's a low bar, but like the NBA injuries are up, so it is going to be hard for anyone to like stay healthy all the time. And he'll have injuries, but I think there's something that can be done because he's 30, but like that's not like you're decrepit when you're 30, you guys. Like he has the capability
as
of
somebody
beating.
who just turned 30. I think it means
Okay, well,
done.
I'm 34 and I have injuries too. But like you can be in shape. Like, okay, LeBron's 41 and he's, come on, like 30 is not that old. And I get that for forwards.
I will say LeBron though, it's kind of one of those things where like he was starting at such a high baseline that like, the decline has actually been pretty steep, but it's just still higher than like a lot of guys in like sports. But like he's been able to mostly maintain himself. I mean, this was the first season that he wouldn't have qualified for and didn't qualify for All NBA because of the time that he missed. And he still almost made it until the very end of the season. Right. And it was like sciatica, not soft tissue stuff. So,
but the Nuggets organization will have to ask hard questions.
Yeah, like,
about
wait,
AG.
has LeBron ever hurt his hamstring? That's actually kind of crazy given his athletic profile.
I don't think so. It's always been like a groin. He always injures his groin when he misses extended time. And I don't know, people's bodies are different for sure. Like, so it's like you can't compare 1-to-1 all the time, but the Nuggets are going to have to ask why is this happening
for a hamstring strain in the 2012-2013 season.
And that might have been like a lie just so he could sit out.
Yeah, true. Well, it said it was a strain, not tightness.
Okay. Yeah.
But that was literally the last time. That was 13 years ago.
Dude, I get that LeBron is a freak, but
we need his hyperbaric chamber. We need his doctors.
I need his overseas exercise doctors. Routine. AG needs to go train with him.
That's why he's starting up this like whatever he's doing in Europe is so he has somewhere to stay while he's seeing the European doctors with their like stem cell treatments or whatever.
That's why Luka just went there, I guess. For a second opinion.
Well, it didn't work because he's still not playing. I'm surprised that Austin Reeves is back, by the way. Like, when I heard that he had an abductor strain, I thought he was definitely done for the season. But apparently not. So. By the way, Lakers still haven't gotten out of their series. That's always fun. Always fun to watch the enemies writhe in some pain, even if they're probably going to make it out eventually. All right, let's go to Cam next. The question for him was, can he stay out of his head on offense? And can he maintain defensive impact through physicality? The defensive impact, I think, was very hit or miss. But I think that was pretty secondary to the staying out of his head on offense thing. I thought Cam mostly like did his job in this series in terms of process, but he like could not make enough shots for it to matter. Ultimately, I thought he was great in the first half of Game 6, but like I said, he came really crashing down to earth. He's not really like good at finishing through contact, so he was joining the missing semi-contested layup party that Denver had going on in that game. But I thought in terms of, like I said, like mentality, I don't really have any notes for him on that. For this whole series, really, it wasn't just like one good game. There was like, we talked, I think, on our last show about how he'd had 3 rebounds through the first 3 games of the series, which is really bad. I don't even know how you do that. But you know, he kind of stepped up on that part after that, but it was kind of like, well, it's kind of too late here. But I think the bigger problem was like, it wasn't his physicality. It was just like TA's got him playing the 4 in these friggin' 3 and 4 guard lineups, basically around Val and Jokic. with AG out and like not being willing to play Zeke for any like substantial time. He actually got like a couple minutes in the game last night, and he obviously played in game 4. He's actually pretty good in that game. But in terms of, since you flashed the headline here, Cam Johnson's fit in Denver. I think the main thing with Cam, we're going to get to it in like subsequent shows when we talk about the offseason. I think that Cam is probably the biggest positive takeaway from this series because he made himself easier to trade by just like being like relatively competent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's definitely. I wasn't expecting that. That's where you were ending up, but yeah, that makes sense.
That's like where I'm at with it. Where it's like, at this point, I don't think that either of us really like predicted a first round exit, especially given the state that Minnesota was in. Even if you think the matchup's really bad, it's going to be like a tough series, whatever. I don't think that we thought that Denver would go out in round 1, but it was really hard to say like if they go out in round 1, what kind of changes would happen. I think that they're going to try to duck the luxury tax. And if they're doing that, Cam is obviously the first one on the chopping block in terms of being traded or whatever. Not whatever, has to be like traded. And if that's the situation you're in, it's only positive if the guy that you have to trade, regardless of anything else that they do, it like has some like trade value. And it helps obviously that his contract is just an expiring contract for next year, but helps even more if you can get some actual like value out of that in terms of not having to attach other things to move it.
It is interesting. Like, again, like I hinted at this at the beginning, where you're trying to make conclusions from one series, which is that's a small sample. That's only 6 games in this case versus 82. And I know if you looked at 82, Cam Johnson would be like first on the chopping block in a way in terms of who's realistically.
Yeah, but he's also got like a little bit more of a body of work beyond this season and like the struggles this season. I think like optimistically, because here's the thing, when you're looking at a contract to trade and like a player, there are different things that make you look at it either optimistically or pessimistically. And I think when you're looking at like, well, the guy's an expiring contract, you kind of look for the positives because it's not that big of a risk that you're taking, right? Whereas if this was a longer term contract, that's when you'd be nitpicking more and looking for reasons not to trade for it if you're like a team that Denver's trying to deal with. Or maybe kind of the other way around. If you're like Denver trying to sell it, it's like, hey, like, it's an expiring contract. Like it's very low risk for you guys. And here are the positives. Whereas if it's a longer term contract, like the threshold is much higher. It's like you need a lot more consistency. Like this player has to have played like a really high level. And even then, like it's hard to like make that case. Whereas again, because he's got 1 year left on his deal, I think that's a much easier case to make to other teams, especially if he's shown an ability to like, look, he didn't shrink. Like this was not Cam shrinking in a big moment kind of thing. If anything, the guys above him did, and in particular Jamal. But I think Jokic also really struggled in this series and in the first half of this game. And like eventually like learned how to fit, and like he showed that there's like there's an ability to, like this comment just said, be able to kind of fit into a team as well.
Yeah, with Cam, like you're changing my mind on it because I feel like I was almost shifting into thinking we might as well just keep him because we may be able to even extend him for something that's a little bit cheaper in a way. And that's just a guy that I could see fitting into the next iteration of the Nuggets, even though, again, he's not like super great defender, but he can be medium defender on a team where hopefully we add better defenders. And also he could be a shooter.
Right. Like that's a problem when you're relying on Cam to be like basically the best perimeter
the best one.
defender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and he had the longest shooting slumps in the regular season, but he was like the only guy who could hit threes for us in the playoffs. And it wasn't Tim, it wasn't Jamal, it wasn't Jokic. Cam was like the only one, and Spencer hit some too. But so I don't know. I was starting to think, hey, we should keep Cam and just move Jamal and start getting some other defenders in here, because he's kind of like on a cheaper end, to be honest. But like you said, he could be a good piece that another team would want. So if you need to rebuild and bring other guys, like I get that he's a good piece to try to do that rather than others. So yeah,
I don't think that Cam is looking to take less money than he's making right now. I think he's looking to play for his next contract somewhere and hope that he can kind of build back up starter level value. That's like, if I was thinking like from the player perspective, that's what I would be doing, especially given like he's like, I was able to do that in past seasons. Denver's in a tough financial situation anyway, so it makes more sense to move me. Like, I'm going to be honest, I would be surprised if Cam is on the roster at training camp.
Okay.
Like shocked, actually.
Also, we don't have P-Watt listed in this section because he didn't play in the series, but there was a report by Jake Fisher who said that that re-signing P-Watt or signing P-Watt is their top priority, is the Nuggets' top priority. So that could indicate that Cam's more likely on the trade block than not.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Last one we've got here, because we were basically just going over the starters. And we can touch on the bench guys briefly. Christian Braun. His questions were, can he take and make shots? Versus, will he be some kind of positive impact perimeter defender? Christian Braun was utterly terrible offensively in this series.
Yeah.
And yes, it could get worse. He could be like this super mistake prone player that like has all these turnovers and like takes a bunch of bad shots and whatever. But the way that he was bad was the way that he has struggled. Like it was like the way that is predictable. And I think that it also deserves a level of condemnation's a little strong, but high critique. Just because he's not throwing the ball all over the place doesn't mean that he was like acceptable offensively, even as like think of him as like the fifth starter.
Mm-hmm.
The number of times that he got the ball in the paint, didn't look at the rim, and then just tried to like pass out, reset the offense. It was like Minnesota didn't have to guard him.
And they didn't.
They didn't have to guard him anywhere. But he was in particular like in the dunker spot like all the time in this series. And it's like, okay, yeah, they're not guarding him from three, but at least from three, he'll like sometimes take the shot. Like they don't have to guard him at all in the paint. Because we talked about this. If he doesn't have a running start, one, he's not going to get the lift, and two, he knows he's not going to get the lift, so he's not even going to try to put that shot up.
Yeah.
And there was just nobody out there besides like Jamal and Cam, well, and Tim sometimes, who was really trying to do anything with the ball in their hands. And I've seen a lot of revisionist history about Christian's contract. And like I even saw like some aggregator talking about how internally they were like, well, we wish we would have paid Peyton last summer and not Christian. I'm like, there was never a question of paying Peyton and not Christian. Like the question last summer was like, do we pay both of them? Do we pay neither? Do we just pay Christian? Right? Because Christian had at least proven himself to fit, not just fit the system, but be like a productive player. That fell off a cliff in this year, in this like whole season, really, but in particular during the playoffs, where he's really like on offense, like he's out there getting cardio. Defense is a little bit of a different question, but I'll get to that in a second. So, like, what would you say about Christian Braun's kind of playoff impact and like what it says about his like role on the team moving forward?
Yeah, I heard Matt Moore talk about how he tore ligaments in his ankle, and therefore that's why he just couldn't play at all, and he shouldn't have come back when he did, but he knew that the team needed him and all that. So I'm praying that there's a chance he comes back next season, given an off season of health, and realizing that he played so poorly and figures something out and figures out a way to find a new role on the team, because he either has to be a much better defender much more often, and he has to figure out how to improve his shot and or
like right now he's just not giving you starter level impact, and next year he's going to be making starter level money. Actually, he's going to be making the same amount of money as Naz Reid, who is a sixth man on his team, but is getting paid like a starter.
Yeah, so I mean, they have to up his value by playing him more next season, but I don't know if he's going to like fall out of the starting lineup, like if P-Watt comes back, or what the hell's going to happen. Probably not, just because I don't know who the Nuggets are going to bring in. But he was terrible, and I'm sorry, but a lot of the reason why Jokic and Jamal also struggled is because the Wolves don't have to guard Christian. Like that was a huge reason why like any Wolves player could just stand in the paint, and that makes it that much harder for Jokic to do what he's supposed to do. And him not standing and Christian Braun being open because the Wolves are standing in the paint means Jokic is going to make the right read and hit CB because he's open. And Christian Braun did hit some threes in the series. Not like he didn't hit any, but he just never proved himself to be a threat. And he
also
dribble.
Passed up. I think the question is like, I think he passed up more than he took, not just more than he made.
Yeah.
Which is bad because whenever he gets the ball, he's open.
Mm-hmm. And it was to the point to where I could see there was psychological damage going on with him, where he was afraid to hold on to the ball last night in the game. Like the ball was just falling out of his hands no matter what was going on. Like if he was trying to pass it or catch it on a cut and transition. Like he used to be a great transition player who could finish around the rim, to now it's like he didn't even want the ball in his hands. He was like shaking that he couldn't even do it. And I was sad for him, to be honest, because it's like, I know he's going to get the most hate out of any Nugget now, and everyone's going to want to trade him, and it's going to be impossible. He's like Zeke Najee, but worse, because he makes so much more money. So I think there's a chance, though, that he can improve a little bit, because I've seen him be competent before. Like he did play well enough at some point to earn a starting spot on this team. I mean, I know it was part that we didn't keep KCP and we just put CB in that spot.
Yeah,
and he's been okay. And maybe with like with a different roster alignment, he can play a different role that he's actually capable of.
But it's also like you're getting paid starter money now. Like you just need to be an impact player. He's going to be making starter money. He's still on his rookie scale deal as of this year. I want to make that clear. But he's going to be making starter money next year. And like, it's the same conversation that we had about Jamal, where it's like, if this is the money that you're getting, you need to provide a certain level of impact because of the hit that the cap takes as a result of what they're paying you. Like you need to, because we can't, like, you're not going to like build your team to like supplement Christian Braun.
Yeah.
Right. Like he needs to provide a certain level of impact, and it just hasn't been there. Even before his injury, I want to make that clear. And part of that, I'm sure RI Smart is in the comments talking about how guys, like, they don't really train as hard when they're waiting on their contracts and this, that, and the other. Is one of the reasons I was very critical of them waiting as long as they did to pay him. So there's that. In addition to the actual contract itself, I think like they like gave up too much with that like 5th year and whatever without any kind of like on paper sort of concessions, things like a team option, things like a lower average annual number. And I totally lost my train of thought. The point is, yeah, Christian like needs to be better. And there's no question of whether Christian's going to get traded. He's not, because that contract is not movable. It's a 5-year. It wouldn't have been movable if Christian had 80% of the year that he had last season, because it's a 5-year deal. And that's why I'm so critical of the structure of that contract at that number, because you're giving out a 5-year deal. That is a player you want to keep. So to that, I say, you talked about like, I don't know if Christian will, get moved to the bench or whatever, depending on what they do with like Peyton and Cam and this, that, and the other. I think that there should be a very reasonable possibility of Christian getting moved to the bench if he plays like he did this year again. Not to punish him, but just to say, like, if your best role is 6-man, then your role on this team is going to be 6-man because we are stuck with you. And so we need to optimize you. Now it doesn't help that like there's nobody behind him right now besides maybe Peyton, depending on how other things shake out, that can plausibly sort of say like I'm a better like fit in the starter role. But depending on what they do with the starting lineup, when they decide to move anybody or maybe multiple people, that could change. And so I think that needs to be on the table, despite like this isn't a Zeke Najee situation where it's like he never plays and so the contract just sits there like withering. He would play, but he would be like in his best role potentially.
We have to play him because that's so much invested. Like I get where Zeke.
He's gonna play. Like I'm not even arguing that. Like there's no question. There's nobody that wasn't playing that had like a better argument to play over him. Even like Julian, like he got his limited minutes in this series and was terrible. So like it wasn't like, oh, Julian should have been playing over Christian or anything like that. It's like Christian is perhaps not built for this volume of role, right? We talked about it last year, even as he had the good season. It's like, well, he could do all this stuff on offense. He's doing all this stuff in transition. Great. I don't know if that lasts. It didn't last going into the playoffs. But in addition to that, the defense completely like fell off a cliff. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, if you can only be good in spurts and that's where you provide your best impact and that's what we need, then maybe that's your best role. And I don't think that we should be afraid to make that the case. I don't think a coach should be afraid to make that the case. Yet coaches are, because it's the NBA and that's how things work. But I think that some of those things need to change. Anyway.
Tony V. Nugs asks about waiving and stretching CB.
You can't stretch a contract that's already 5 years long.
How long were those ones?
You can only stretch a contract up to 5 years. So
okay, yeah. So you got to wait a little bit. That would be crazy if we did that, but I don't know. Also, yeah, the Cronkies are too cheap to do that. But yeah, I just think of Christian's comments about Russell Westbrook about how like when he was here, he was forced to have to be better because there was the conversations about him replacing CB in the starting lineup.
And the way that Christian saw fit to be quote unquote better was to keep scoring points in transition and like not get any stops. But
yeah, so
Okay.
And now we don't have that, and he gets to relax. He had his contract. I know he got hurt, whatever. But yeah, he was not good enough at all. And it is scary to think about someone making that much money being the starting two guard, and he can't do anything on offense. So, and he doesn't really defend that well either. So yeah, this is going to be a tough one. It's going to be the biggest kind of question and blemish on the Nuggets roster until he shows enough to possibly be traded, which is almost hard to even think is possible. But I know there are people, there are Nuggets fans who believe in Christian Brown and they like what he brings.
But
so let's hope.
I want to emphasize again, it doesn't matter if Christian had even had, like I said, 80, even 90% of the year that he had last season. That is not a contract that gets traded. It is too long. That is a contract that you have because you want that guy on your roster for the long term. So it doesn't matter what he does going forward for the next, like, for the foreseeable future, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Not getting moved. Doesn't matter what he does.
Okay. So we just got to hope that he.
So it needs to be like, we need to figure out a way to optimize him for whatever Denver's trying to do, whatever that's going to be. All right, we talked about the players. Let's get to the blame pie segment. We've got about 45 minutes left in the show here. We've kind of been doing the kind of where does Denver go from here, and kind of doing a little bit of blame pie, but I want to kind of expand the circle a little bit. The main, I think the main sort of segments here in terms of who to blame for like this playoff loss of this playoff series and this like catastrophic failure where you're the higher seed, you're the, despite your own injuries, the healthier team, and you lose in stunning fashion in 6 games. It's not particularly close. Like, Minnesota looked like the better team for most of the series. It wasn't like, oh, there were some like back and forth games. Like, there were, but it was mostly like Minnesota. The 2 games where Denver looked like the clear better team were the 2 they won. And then everything else was like all Minnesota, basically. Or they're the ones that are able to close out. Denver lost 3 clutch games in this series, by the way, out of their 4 losses. But one of those, like I said, Minnesota basically led wire to wire in game 6, almost wire to wire. But the 3 segments of blame are, let's add one here. Jokic. Let's say Jokic / Jamal, so like the leaders of the team.
Whoa, okay. Putting them together.
Yeah, I'm going to put them together because they were both they both had the same issue where it's like they were not playing anywhere near what they needed to and what was expected of them as the 2 best players on this team. DA / coaching staff, like we can talk about them. The front office. And maybe what we'll do is say front office / other guys, because the front office is responsible for the other guys on the team. Right? It's like, who's on the team, who stepped up, who didn't. Jokic and Jamal, I think, get 50% of the blame pie for this series. Maybe 60, because they just like straight up were not good enough.
Right.
How do you feel about that? Is that too high?
Like, I feel like affected, like actual, like what happened on the court. How do I say this? It's like, I don't think I would give them that much.
Really? I was going to say the opposite. Like, I would have said, like, based on what, like, they're all the contextual stuff, like, I want to throw it in there, but based on what happened on the court, it was them, like, in this series.
Yeah, but I just think I would go a little bit less than that. But
how much less? Give me a number.
I don't know. I'd have to think about. I'd have to like try to map it out for all these things and then like kind of adjust what I think. But I would go maybe 40 maybe. and then say, or like 45, and then say, but because it's like, yeah, they're the leaders, of the best players, they got to step up. I get how like that idea pushes it up. So I think there's like ideas of like how the NBA
The
works and how
expectation of
winning
them.
works that would push it up. Yeah.
And like, we have to be clear. I think that you and I are generally pretty critical of the way that sort of, let's say, legacy media, but even like NBA media more broadly, even like the sort of smaller outlets, like the fun outlets, cover the league as very player centric, very star centric. You don't take as much of the like team context into account, this, that, and the other. Right. Like you and I can agree that we're generally pretty critical of that. But I think what needs to be acknowledged about part of why that is for basketball is because it is a sport where the outsized impact of the very best players in the league and the players just under that on the actual game is just that, outsized. Like, it is so important how well your best players play in terms of determining the outcome of these games, which is why guys like Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels are going to get their plaudits for this series because they completely, shut off that water for Jamal and like shut off Jokic's water enough to the point where they could win this series even with their injuries, right? So I think that's why I have to put, like, for me, like 60% of it on Jokic and Jamal. Because straight up, it's like if they play a 50th percentile game for them, like by their standard, like an average game, like across this series, the Nuggets win this series. So that's my rationale there.
Okay. Yeah. So you moved up from 50 to 60. Did I just hear that?
Well, I said 60. I said 60 to start.
Okay. I thought you said 50.
Maybe I said 50 or 60, but my head was thinking 60. So I'm going to go with 60. But I understand you wanted to go a little bit lower.
Yeah, I just like have other things that I'm pissed about, so I have to save some room.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I should have saved it for the end then. That's gonna be my biggest slice of the pie for sure.
And I would
what
give
flavor
Jamal,
is the blame pie, by the way?
Like,
is it like something tasty, or is it bad shit?
Just awful.
Is it like
disgusting?
What's the worst pie I've ever had? I don't think there's like a pie that I've disliked, but it's like just because of the flavor itself, but it was more like how it was made. What's like a terrible pie? Send us the worst pie flavors. Actual pie flavors, not poop pie, guys. Comment the worst pie.
I am blaming Jamal more than Jokic. I'm sorry. I just am. Maybe that makes me too much of a Jokic fan. Whatever, people can be mad, but that's just how I feel.
So, like, you gave him 45%. How much of that is Jamal? How much of that is Jokic?
So, like, if it was like, let's just say it was 50%, I'd say 35 to 15
to 10.
35.
Oh, you said 50%. I thought you said 45. Okay.
I was just saying just to make the math easier. I can't math like that. That's on the fly.
I mean, okay, we're gonna break down the slices here. I think it's pretty 50-50.
Yeah, maybe it is closer. Maybe it'd be like 30.
Because 20. If you're gonna remember the elimination game, and Jokic is so much better than Jamal in that game, and it's like that's why they literally got eliminated. If Jamal is literally better in the elimination game, then they don't get eliminated, and then maybe it goes to game 7, and who knows? So that's that goes along with my argument about like literally who's the but for reason that they are eliminated right now. And in game 6, it was literally Jamal. But the reason that game 6 was an elimination game, I think, is because of Jokic early in the series. Right?
Yep.
And so
it's fair. And Jamal was like one of the only people playing well, at least when I was looking at it in the series. So
it's very 50-50 for me. Like, I don't have.
It's probably true. Yeah. Probably true.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about DA. So I've got 40% left. So just to give away my last two segments here, there's DA/coaches and then the front office and other guys. And when I say front office, by the way, I think I'm going to include like everybody involved in like creating the team as is. It's not just like Ben and John and like Calvin's going to be included because like there was only so much that they were going to do last summer with what they had. And I think Tim Connelly too, actually. And so for that reason, I'm going to assign, I have 40% left. I'm going to assign 30% to front office and the role players. Because Tim Connelly had the audacity to pass on Jaden McDaniels to draft Zeke Nnaji. Draft a bunch of small guards to Denver. Leave Denver in a situation where Calvin Booth looked like a freaking hero for signing KCP and Bruce Braun in 2023 to make the team just like moderately more athletic. And he did draft Christian Payton also, to be fair, to add to that. But then Calvin did literally everything he did, and I'm not going to rehash all of that. Like we have, like, go check the archives. Like we've got entire shows. Check every episode that involves CT Fazio. He'll give you the full history on all these guys. Obviously, like this comes in the context of like AG was injured, Peyton was injured, but the Wolves had guys that were injured. The Wolves had athletic guys that were injured. There was a joke in one of my group chats yesterday. Like they lost Ant and Io and got more athletic on the floor, in part because Ant was so hobbled when he was on the floor. DiVincenzo also goes out, obviously, and Slow-Mo goes out, but they're not really at the top end of the athleticism for the Wolves roster. But they just have athleticism up and down the roster. We have guys out, and we're playing Tyus Jones. We're playing, I mean, Julian Strother got some minutes. Zeke Nnaji got some limited minutes, but it wasn't going to be impact stuff. And then they look like, oh, like these guys are not the NBA players. Meanwhile, this like second year in Terrence Shannon Jr. comes into an NBA playoff game and an elimination game and is like the most athletic guy on the floor and is able to help close out Denver. Right. Obviously Terrence Shannon Jr., like we already talked about it. Like we passed on him to draft De'Ron Holmes. And then Tim got him. And you can go back to that draft episode. I was like, damn it. Tim got Terrence Shannon Jr. And I think the lack of athleticism is tough. And this is all in retrospect. I generally think that like the current front office is like trying to do the best they can to like add depth to the team within certain parameters. They knew that they needed to convert Spencer Jones. So they did that. And they got rid of Hunter Tyson. I mean, it really, in retrospect, it could have been Hunter or Jalen. Because like Jalen just didn't play after the trade deadline. It's very funny. And maybe it would have been easier to just move Jalen without having to give up a second, but maybe not. Who knows? Tony B. Nugs, I'm just talking about this particular series elimination. I don't think that they deserve more than 30% of the blame because these are guys that did not, that like you have to balance the front office with the guys did not play up to their potential, right? At the same time. And I'm not going to sit here and blame the organization for every single thing that happens on the court. I know Adelman deserves a lot of blame. I agree with that. And I have my criticisms with him for this series, but it's not to the degree that I have criticisms of Jamal Jokic and the quality of play of the guys around them. We talked about Christian and Cam, Christian in particular, like severely underperforming the expectation of him. I've heard and seen a lot of criticism of Tim Hardaway Jr., by the way, in terms of like one of the other guys. You go into the playoffs with Tim and the question is like, is he going to be the same guy that he's in the playoffs every year? And it's like, yeah, was the answer, right? Despite having been, I was kind of like semi-optimistic about what he could be in the Wolves matchup because he played so well against the Wolves in the regular season. So that took away some of the cushion that Denver had in this particular matchup. But throughout the year, I was like, look, I have no idea if this is going to continue into the playoffs. In fact, the chances are it will not. But Tim was a huge, massive help to Denver in the regular season in getting them to the position that they were in, right? And so I had otherwise, I was like, maybe he'll do something in the Wolves series. I don't know. Like, that would be the optimistic case for him. But otherwise, what you're getting from Tim in the playoffs is cherry on top of what he's given you in the regular season. That was just my expectation. Tim is like, is he like 34?
I don't know his age.
Yes, he's 34 years old. So I think everyone needs to kind of chill out on that. If anything, with him in particular, like, you can criticize DA. It's like at some point, it's like, oh, you got to pull him. But then the question is like, well, who's behind him? So then it goes to front office. It's like, why is Tim Hardaway Jr. like literally one of the most athletic perimeter guys that we have? That's just unacceptable.
Okay, I mean, so
Yeah.
you went through everything, but how much did you give DA again specifically?
I gave DA just the remaining 10%.
10%
So I'm actually going to be more, I think, more forgiving. Like, if you would have told me that they go out in round one and I'm going to give DA only 10% blame 2 weeks ago, like, I would have called you crazy. But I think the other issues were a lot more glaring. And the reason I want to talk about this is that, like, these are persistent issues that existed under the previous head coach as well. Right? Where lack of athleticism, the defense is a problem. They don't have enough perimeter creation. And yes, you bring in DA because it's like, well, he's this offensive genius. Well, it turns out that only goes so far if you don't have the guys who are able to execute it. If your best players are not playing up to their potential and you don't have, role players that can play above their heads for like multiple games. Because I would say like Spencer definitely played like well above his head in game 5. Right. That was kind of it for this series. I think Bruce had one good game also.
God,
Was it
Bruce
game 1 or
like,
2?
I've never been more disappointed in Bruce Brown than last night. It was like, I mean, he airballed a layup from the restricted area. Like it was like the most disgusting play I've ever seen from him. Like, and it was turnovers and it was fouls. Like, he did nothing good. He couldn't grab the ball. Yeah. Anyway, so for me, like, I have been on I am more mad at, or I would blame the players more than David Adelman. And even Jokic said it last night. He was like, it wasn't David Adelman, it was us.
I do, like, I will say, like, let me just state my critique of DA's performance in this series. It wasn't timeouts, which was my like main thing. It wasn't even like after timeout plays. Like, some of those went well. Like, often they were just missing the shot, right? I did not like the way that the offensive game plan was playing out for the first basically 4 games of the series, and it took them too long to pivot. And that's a big critique. I don't know how different that would have made the series, though, given the other issues that they had. I do think it might have made a difference in like game 2, for sure, because they were up big in that game and then like lost it at the very end. But ultimately, it's up to the players to kind of make things work in those spots. But that's my critique of DA.
I think there were schematic things that weren't working well, and he didn't like Swipa put it last night. I liked how he put it on Locked On, where it's like Chris Finch was pulling the right levers with his roster, and DA just didn't seem to be doing that. But I also think that there wasn't that many options for DA to go to because I think the roster is not good. And I think it was clear that they were not athletic. They looked weak. They looked small. They looked old. They looked tired. Whatever word you want to put. And they just didn't show up. Like the shooting disappeared. Like I know, yeah. There's basketball reasons why we were shut down because the Wolves are very aggressive and they got us out of rhythm on our shooting. Like they took away easy looks. They made it hard for Jokic and Murray, who are the top. They're the heads of the snake on the offense. They took that away completely. So like you give them credit, but also we just completely disappeared. And I don't think David Adelman or the front office could have foreseen the level at which the players disappeared. But because I kind of saw in this series how outmatched we were with our roster and like the Wolves' depth versus ours, I kind of more put the most blame after Jokic and Jamal on the front office. That's like where I'm ending up. Like front office, most amount of blame, then the other guys, then DA. I don't know like how that would break down, but and I'm like all for firing David Adelman. I'm not saying keep David Adelman, but I think the front office is like
right. Like there's
ridiculous.
no case to keep him, but there's also like that's not going to fix the problems. So that's where I'm at too.
Yeah. So I'm not like trying to defend any of them. I think DA, and I don't know. I just hate the idea that the Nuggets need a Malone type coach to fire them up. Like I'm like, you guys are professional basketball players. Like I don't understand. Like, are you like 15 that you need like an old guy to yell at you to play basketball? I don't know. It's just weird to me. I don't understand it, but apparently they do need that because they didn't have like a sense of fire about them. And I guess that, like people can blame that on DA because they didn't. I think they didn't look prepared, like mostly, for whatever reason. So I think that definitely.
I think offensively that was true for like large stretches of the series, and it's I can understand that being like a call to fire DA because it's like, well, if your whole reason for being here is being the offensive genius and like all of this stuff, but then they look unprepared offensively, or they're like the game plan doesn't make sense offensively for most of the series. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of shocking because I really did think the moves in the offseason were good. Like it made sense to me. And like Val didn't work out. I mean, Tim was great in the regular season, but was just like honestly a non-factor in this series. And it was like crazy that didn't even work. But yeah, it's like all the moves we did this year just didn't work out at all. Like Bruce Brown was horrible. So yeah, it was rough. So yeah, that's where my blame pie would go. And it would be Josh Kroenke in the front office. Because I think obviously he's the dude that is making the decisions, and Ben Tenzer and John Wallace are the little puppets on his strings. And he even got a vote for second place executive, which was funny.
I was gonna say, yeah. Wait, were you the one that sent me that graphic? Because I was shocked when I saw that.
I don't think I sent it to you, but I did say something about it on Twitter. Like I was like, oh, I didn't even think he could get votes. Like I didn't know like owners, even if he's like the president, whatever his title is, could get a vote. I thought it was like all GMs, but
he got one second place vote and a third place vote.
Yeah.
I actually think so. I agree. Like I'm fine with Brad Stevens winning, but I thought, let's see, Ansi Saleh was number 2. That makes sense. They put Trajan Langdon there, and I'm like, sure. I would have had, like, I know Houston's going out sad, but like they don't have Fred, and like KD killed the vibes. And maybe you're like blaming him for KD killing the vibes, but I would have had Raphael Stone higher than he was, which was like 8th or 9th on this list. By the way, didn't get to comment on the nerdiest of the NBA awards, Executive of the Year.
Yeah.
But Brad Stevens stays winning. Where do they go from here? Well, let's make this part short. I want to frame this as like what not talking about specific moves, but what should be the main objectives of Denver this summer?
I had a specific question
Sure.
for you in the chat for sure about thinking about the future, but I'll get to that after I kind of say my thing.
Okay.
Because I want, like, yeah, here's CT's bringing up creators, and that was obviously an issue because all we had was Jokic and Jamal. No one else could do anything. There were times when Cam kind of got downhill and got layups, but it just didn't have enough. Like, I don't think he could have done that reliably all the time.
Yeah, and we
like, you
saw,
could-
like, I was
yeah.
like, okay, he was great in the first half and then crashed down to earth in the second half. Like, I actually, let
Yeah.
me see, let me just check out Cam's shot log here. Oh, it's not letting me see. But I think he made 8 shots total. I think only 1 or 2 of them was in the second half.
Yeah,
He
you
had
can't.
27 points. Holy shit. Really? I did not realize
Yeah, he was.
points.
We would have been getting blown out in the first quarter if it wasn't for Cam Johnson.
Yeah.
And so I want to get rid, like, obviously I want to be more athletic. I want better defenders. I want I think, yeah, we need to take a step back from like trying to just put shooters around Jokic and be this offensive juggernaut. I want to watch a team that can get some stops for sure next year, and then let Jokic's offense raise the team up, like raise some players up who aren't the best offensively. And I know we may be questioning that because we have people like CB on the team and like his offense isn't being raised up by Jokic just by being a teammate of Jokic. But I've seen these other defenders on these other teams hit threes in big moments in the playoffs.
I don't think that it should be, I don't think that the defender should only be able to like defend and like maybe hit threes though. Like, I think we need more skilled athletes. I think that we need to look for that in the draft. And I think we need to, if they're like, look, if they're going to blow things up and 1 or more starters gets moved, the priority would have to be getting skilled athletes back. That is guys that can create a little. RX says, do you think it's hard to build around Jokic? I feel like every contender has elite rim protection. For some reason, Jokic can't lead elite playoff offenses. I think that it's harder to build around Jokic than people have given that job credit for. But I think, like, I actually can't remember if this was a show that we did with CT or not. We had a whole discussion. I think it was last offseason actually, where we talked about this very question. If you go and check out our last show around June with CT Fazio last year, this is before they hired the front office, before we knew what they were going to do this summer. We talked a lot about the need for perimeter creation. That's just a limitation of having your big being your best player, particularly one that isn't a volume on ball creator. Because ultimately, like, you know, your sets get scouted in the playoffs and you're going to need other guys to be able to make plays. Like, it's great you can run handoffs with all these guys, but they have to actually like be able to do something with it once they do, which was like the appeal of Cam Johnson for sure. And he like showed that off in this game, in the first half of this game. But I think that you see Minnesota has just a bunch of guys that can defend and do that when called upon. So it's not like, oh, you're calling on Jaden McDaniels to always be this volume creator. But he can do it if you need him to. And I mean, like, he was the best player in the game last night. He completely shut off Jamal's water and was still able to shoot 13 of 25 from the floor. You had Terrence Shannon Jr., who was not in the playoff rotation in game 1 of this series. You can go a game where you're missing Ant, you're missing DiVincenzo, Mike Conley is 1,000,000 years old, and despite all of that, Bones Highland only has to play 8 minutes because you have other guys that can do something with the ball in their hands and at least exploit this is something with Denver that I don't know. Like Minnesota's formula, like as they are, I don't think is like a foolproof, like fully sustainable thing. As we've seen, like they've had issues once they encounter certain other teams just because of the way that they play, and their guys kind of like they get CTE sometimes. Like that's just true. If there are any Wolves fans watching, like okay, your team. But uh they are able to expose other these like other teams, and we talked so much about in this series like Denver having an ability to expose Minnesota's defenders off ball, but when they couldn't do that, they couldn't do anything on the ball because it was all on Jamal. There was nobody else that was going to do anything on the ball. And so when he couldn't, and we weren't exploiting things off ball because DA just like wanted to do who knows what for the first 4 games of the series, it got really dicey in there. And that's in part because like Jokic, for as good as he is at like basically everything else on offense, he's not a great on ball creator, not at this stage in his career, not in the playoffs anyway, not for the last few years. And so like he needs somebody else to help with that burden. And that's why it's so devastating when Jamal is either injured or just not performing. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's fair to be like, oh, well, if Jamal was like, I don't know, De'Aaron Fox or like Donovan Mitchell, whatever, that would be enough, because those guys also falter in moments too. Maybe not to the degree that, Jamal did, especially last night, but they also have other perimeter creators around them. And that's really important. But that's a limitation of like your best player not being that guy because he's also making the most money on your roster. And we have a whole discussion about this, about the difficulty of building around Jokic, just like what those limitations are. And I think it's important to be clear-eyed about that when it comes to what Jokic needs around him on both ends of the floor. And I do mean both ends of the floor because I don't think that you can just kind of build all defense and kind of throw offense to the wind and be like, Jokic, fix this. We kind of saw what that looked like in 2024. Even though it wasn't like a super high level defensive team, they played at a super high level defensively. Like I said, this same Minnesota team was only scoring 44 points in the paint per game in that series. Right. There needs to be there are just certain things that need to be balanced there. So yeah, look for that June episode with CT Fazio last year. We talked about all of that.
I mean, the idea that Jokic is hard to build around, I don't think is true. I think he has weaknesses and you have to shore them up on defense. Like he's never going to be a rim protector. That's just not what he does. So you need wings who can rotate on the back line, who can play the low man, who can
stay in front of guys.
Stay in front of guys too. Yeah, we need perimeter defense. Like, you can't have Jokic have to be the best defender on the team. You need other people. And and so okay, I'm banning this dude because he's so annoying. Okay, bye. So yeah, you can get guys to help shore up the deficiencies of Jokic. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to build around Jokic because of this fact. So that's just how it is. But we just need to be more athletic. You need to do like the AG. Like I've always said, if we had like 4 AGs around Jokic, we'd be killing everybody. Like that'd be awesome. But so yeah, I think it's fine to build around Jokic. But my question was, do you want to? Like, do you think the Nuggets are kind of like take the step back, which you may just think that because of the financials and them wanting to deduct the tax. But like there is the idea that if you want to improve the roster, it also does need to kind of like take a year to like get some people out and then bring some people in. So we could be really bad next year.
That's called propaganda. No, I don't subscribe to that. But I don't think that that's how you make a roster better. I don't think you make a roster better by making it worse. I think that you make a roster worse by making it worse. But that's what they're going to do. In all likelihood, because they went out in the first round and they are staring down the repeater tax next year. So they've got assurances from their superstar that he's not going to ask out, that he wants to stay in Denver basically forever. So they're probably going to take the opportunity to duck the luxury tax, and that's going to involve a big change. And what I'm saying is, can they at least use, if they're going to do that, and that's the baseline that we're operating under, because that's what they're going to do. Can they use this opportunity to like start to pivot towards more skilled athleticism? And I don't know what that's going to look like. Because obviously if you get rid of one or multiple other starters besides Cam, because I really do think that is a given at this point. But you're also going to create other holes that need to be filled potentially. And so that will be interesting off-season fodder.
Do you think there is a possibility to try to make the team better to compete next season with how difficult it will be to like move pieces?
Yeah. I think there's always opportunities out there. There's always a sucker. The New Orleans Pelicans exist. Who are the other, like the Sacramento Kings exist, although I don't think they have literally anything that anybody would want at this point. And you never know like what could happen in the draft with not just what Denver could potentially get if they don't end up just trading their pick to try and dump money this summer. But what other teams might get and decide they want to like move on from, or what they draft somebody and it makes somebody else become available because they're like, okay, we got to make room for this other guy, right?
Yeah, you never know.
I think there's always opportunity. Like Denver is not I don't know who was like, no team is ever like really fully stuck. Minnesota didn't sucker Io. The Bulls, they paid them 4 second round picks and Rob Dillingham to get him. Like they paid the pipe. I actually thought the Bulls like got a decent price for Io in the context of like, I think actually Minnesota might have overpaid a little bit for him. Io probably wanted out. He was about to be an unrestricted free agent. The Bulls had no control over that, and they were at risk of losing him for absolutely nothing. And instead they get 4 second round picks and Rob Dillingham as a like, who knows if that pans out. It seems like hadn't been going like particularly well in Minnesota, but it's like, this is a young prospect that, might have some upside. Who knows? Although the Bulls have like way too many freaking guards.
I heard Anthony bringing in Anthony Davis idea, which was really funny. Chat was kind of talking about that earlier because he's like a rim defender 4, but he could be hurt all the time too. And then you're right back.
He's also making $50 million. Like that's not happening.
Would you trade CB for Monk? Asks RX Smart.
Ooh, that's interesting. They make a similar amount. I think Malik makes $17 million. Sacramento would be taking on money, taking a young player. We get older, smaller, worse defender, but you get kind of a different kind of perimeter athleticism offensively. And his contract is shorter, like it would be a salary dump too. I think that that's something I would consider, but I'd need more time to sit with it. I don't think it's an idea that I would dismiss out of hand.
Yeah, the Jamal for Kyrie thing has been one that I thought about too, but I don't know if that's a reality or not. I don't even know if I would want that, or I hadn't even looked to like if that was possible, even just like with the contracts or whatever. But because Kyrie can definitely create off the ball, but he's been injured.
Like so while we're here, I know, well, guys, you gotta save some of these questions for our subsequent off-season shows, guys, where we really dig into these details. But let's see, Jamal's got 10 million more. So was it Kyrie and what was it, Gafford? That's too much money for Denver to take on. but Kyrie's got a player option for next year. So ultimately, it's like basically a salary dump of not for next year. He's got one more year and then a player option for 27, 28. I think these are all like everything's on the table now. A lot of things that are on the table now were absolutely off the table last summer. And that's just what happens when you go out like this, right? But I do think in terms of where Denver goes from here, God, I want Derek Lively. They need to get more skilled athleticism on the roster. I think that they hope, like we talked about this with Julian Payton Christian. Like we've been talking about this for 2 years. Like the bet is that at least one of them and hopefully two, so like average 1.5 of these guys become like either Julian gets way better on defense. That just like has not happened. We saw that in the playoffs, and offensively he was also not good. Or like Christian and Peyton like gain offense that is like approaching the level of polish that at least theoretically Julian has in his game that just didn't show up in that way in the playoffs, but has in other spots, whatever. Ryan said he wants Jokic to play the 4 and get a rim protector at the 5 spot similar to Cat and Rudy. Said it's Dan locked on. I'm like, whatever. That's why I went Derek Lively. Is like I want the option to do that.
I don't like that, but
does that say Jason Timpmuse? Goodness, you guys are crazy. I want the option to do that. That's why I want Derek Lively. I want the option to play Jokic with a real rim protector that can operate on offense with him. Yeah.
That would be cool. I mean, here's the other thing too. Jamal Murray, like I've always wondered what, like, okay, Jamal made All NBA and made the All Star. So previously it was like, what would the team look like with Jokic playing with someone of that caliber? And Jamal finally hit it this season, but then wasn't like that in the playoffs. And I do wonder what kind of like co-star we might be able to find that really like is just a different look and could hopefully maximize Jokic in other ways. Like we're still going to need a ball handler and a point guard to put around Jokic, even if Jamal goes. But
I think the thing with Jokic, and I want to reemphasize this, is that he doesn't just need like one co-star. Like I think the like Jokic's optimum sort of offensive look looks closer to, it would be like if San Antonio had, if it would be like if Jokic is on a rookie scale contract like Wemby is, they had AG, and then they had all the perimeter skill that Wemby has around him as a result of the fact that he's still on his rookie scale deal. And these other guys are on their rookie scale deals. He's got Fox, he's got Vassell, he's got Dylan Harper. Keldon Johnson has had a really great year as a 6-man, kind of in that like a supplementary role, but has, some limited creation chops.
Kawhi would be kind of funny for sure. LeBron.
I simply would not do that one, but nothing's off the table, unfortunately.
Well, at least we get to speculate on pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
In this offseason, So.
I actually, before we go, and I know you've got a hard out, I just wanted to run to the trade machine and see what's trending on the trade machine right now. It's literally the 4 out of the top 5 trending on the trade machine are Nuggets. And number 4.
I mean, understandably.
Yeah. Number 1 is Jamal Murray right now, by the way. It's Jamal, Cam, Giannis, and Val.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. Yeah, I mean, the loss sucked for Nuggets fans, and I appreciate you guys still coming in and talking to us, even though the Nuggets went out so sad. But off seasons are fun too. Like there's going to be change, and it's going to be fun to think about what the team looks like next year. So come hang out with us, and we'll get through all the rumors and ideas and BS.
Here's my thing. We got a question about who do I think is going to win the Wolves Spurs series. Every time I've picked the Wolves, they've lost, and every time I don't pick the Wolves, they win. So I'm going to go ahead and just say the Wolves are going to beat the Spurs in 4. I'm going to say Wolves in 4. Yeah, but we'll do our more fulsome playoff brackets next week. I think we'll have 2 games under each series. By the time we do that show, we'll probably do that one on Thursday. And yeah, then we'll see who we think is going to win the title ultimately. Maybe it'll be the Hospital Timberwolves. And then Denver can say, well, I mean, we got taken out by the champs. We took the champs to 6 games. Spoiler alert, that's not going to be what I predict, but
Yeah. Man, Watson, Gordon, Jokic, Kawhi, Suggs. That would be. I have seen a lot of people talk about Nuggets Magic trades, like even like trying to get Paolo, and like betting on his upside and like him getting to the level that people saw when they drafted him, but taking the chance on the Nuggets. And Suggs, of course, has always been someone people talk about.
Franz just got injured again, which is really sad for the Magic. But they're getting really expensive next year, and Franz like can't seem to get healthy, and they're maybe stuck with Paolo's contract, which means he might be the most gettable guy. I'd love to have Franz on this team. I think he's exactly what. I think he's exactly the kind of player that would play well with Jokic, by the way. But I don't know what that deal would look like.
Oh, that's your comment. Yeah.
Yeah, the second apron does suck. Like, chemistry's right. The way to build around Jokic is to not have a second apron.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Crazy
if you
ideas. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Crazy
thanks for hanging out. You guys are the best, honestly.
Going.
Like, I feel so much better after this show. Although I'm gonna say I did a lot of like therapy after that game. I'm binge watching Invincible right now. It's really good. No spoilers, guys. I'm only on season 1. But this like I was kind of dreading this episode. But I feel a lot better.
I'm like, what are we going to talk about?
There's so much more to talk about. That's the thing. That's the great thing about being an NBA fan is, like, especially with the community, is that when things are going poorly, you actually have more to talk about, right? Unlike this season where it's like we could feel that something was like off, but like they kept winning like kind of enough games until they weren't, and then it was like, ugh. Vyacheslav, will I make a show next week or pause incoming? No way. We're going. The playoffs are happening. I think I have jury duty next week, but I'm going to try to still make time for the show. The time might be a little bit different, but we'll communicate all that to you guys.
Yeah. We might have to like ask if people want to like see clips of other games or like what. I mean, we usually do
I think we'll probably do like less extensive stuff. I think what we should probably try is like a couple of our favorite plays from some of the other playoff series for sure. Like Chemistry says, thanks for the shows. Honestly, makes it way more enjoyable following the Nuggets to be able to listen to you guys or at Locked On or DNVR. You got good taste in shows, Grace. Thank you, Like Chemistry. I love all those shows as well. So I do think I have good taste in shows, and you guys have good taste in podcasts as well. You know, it's funny because I started following all of these podcasts, these like other Nuggets podcasts, because I became a fan of the team and I wanted to like learn more about basketball and the game and the Nuggets, right? But there are podcasts that I listen to that break down like TV shows where I watch the shows because I like the podcast and I want to follow along with what they're saying. And I don't think that there's literally anybody that watches our show that isn't a fan of the Nuggets. But I think that that'd be really cool if we got to a point where people were like, I just like listening to Will and Grace. And if they're talking about the Nuggets, I need to watch the Nuggets. Someone needs to be the Thunder. I agree. I agree. And I hope that somebody does. I think it'd be really funny if LeBron got his 5th ring at 40 million years old.
Don't tease the chat with that. That's like their worst fear. The Lakers winning it somehow. But like Ant has the potential to come back. Luka maybe has the potential to come back. So I don't know. Some things could change, but I still doubt that either of them.
The Spurs are looming, right? So,
I said
right.
I might root for the Thunder because if I have to suffer, I want everyone to suffer, and I want the NBA to be dragged into the depths of hell. And just be like flopping and grifting is what the NBA is about now. So, I just want everyone to have to deal with that horrible
Well, they're
mess.
also shooting better than like everybody. They're the only team that like improved their shooting to start the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, they're also playing like a joke of a team who doesn't
true.
defend at all. Yeah.
I mean, the Suns were a good defense in the regular season, even though they didn't play well against us.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. We appreciate you the most. All right, snoozer. If you like our content, please remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as the notification bell. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We will definitely continue covering the playoffs, perhaps at like a different time, but we're still going to be doing our weekly shows. Follow us on socials to keep up with show updates. And always remember, winning is fun and losing sucks. But friends are forever.
Positive.